Dismantling victimization, the bane of our existence. Yes, victimization. Look, I know some of you will get offended by these statements, but trust me, what you will get out of this video is a lot better than what you might otherwise be thinking. If you honestly can't wait, it's the solution to the majority of sexual assault cases, and your one-way ticket to success in life. The problem is victimization, and in this video, I plan on delving into why people do it, how to avoid it, and why what I'm proposing to you is the answer you've been looking for this whole time. So really, how bad is it? Before we talk about the consequences, you first need to learn how to spot it. To do this, I've taken 2 questions from an equality, diversity, and inclusion test that I myself had to pass.
Okay, so quiz time. Question 1. I'm not reading all that, so I'm just going to stick it up here and I'm just going to give you the 4 options which you have to choose from. So, option 1. The third student has a point. The other 2 were stereotyping Katie and their sympathy is misplaced and inappropriate. Option 2. There's nothing wrong with what the 2 students have said. They are being sensitive, considerate, and thoughtful. Answer 3. The third student is behaving ridiculously. There's no point getting angry and being judgmental because the other 2 didn't mean to offend anyone. And question 4. It's all a fuss over nothing. People get too worked up about language and everyone feels scared to open their mouths in case they're accused of saying something offensive. So, my genuine question to you is, which one of those 4 did you pick? Let's start with counting out, let's say, half the definitely wrong answers and make it very clear, very obvious. Let's strike out number 2, number 4, completely gone. If you picked either of those, you got other issues that we will need to sort out in other videos. And now let's go to the last one. If you picked number 1, the third student has a point, the other 2 were stereotyping Katie and their sympathy is misplaced and inappropriate. Well, I'd love to tell you that you're wrong. According to this quiz I took, it said you would be right. Well, the reason why this is right, once again, is what we're delving into in this video. If you picked 3, hooray, you picked the hidden answer, and I'll explain why the answer isn't 1, although how today if you ask most people, they probably would have said number 1. With that said, let's hop straight into question 2. Okay, so as with question 1, I'm not reading all that, so I'm going to give you all the time that you want to pause, read the question for yourself as I go through the 3 options which you have to choose from. Number 1. The white employee's questions and attitude amount to harassment. The African employee understandably finds the subject matter of the questions offensive, as it is all based on negative stereotypes about life and people in Africa. That's option 2. These questions are fine, the white person has a healthy interest and is just trying to find out more. And there's question 3. The questioning is insensitive, it unnecessarily puts the African employee in the spotlight when he's a minority in the group, but it is also not worth making such a fuss about, particularly because his white employee does not mean to be offensive. There's 1, 2, or 3, I'm not going to give you a correct answer this time, but I am going to tell you that if you picked answer number 1, that the white employee's questions amount to harassment, once again, this video is for you. Point being, I just wanted to give you 2 examples of where this kind of idea and mentality of victimization just comes into and bleeds into everyday life and situations.
Okay, so now that you know how to spot it, let's talk about why it's bad. I'll start with sexual assault, one of the most common breeding grounds for such behavior. The part victimization plays in sexual assault. This usually happens the most within cases of sexual assault / rape. I mean, the hashtag #MeToo movement is a great example to use to highlight this. Shockingly, it's only rape if you penetrate a penis in the United Kingdom, but that's a debate for another day. If a girl gets raped when drunk by a drunk man, it is entirely the fault of the rapist. I mean, how dare they? What immoral kind of monster preys on an innocent woman? The stupid coyotes see easy targets. But one who is drunk, aka incapable of thinking clearly and rationally because of the intoxication of alcohol, they unleash the worst of their character due to the lucid restraint which drunkenness brings. When one is drunk, one should rationally expect the worst because that's what drunkenness brings. Plenty of people get drunk to see or to be the people who do dumb stuff they normally wouldn't do just for fun. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Rape. If both parties involved are drunk, then the woman is incapable of doing what she can rationally do to prevent the worst from happening, such as moving away from the rapist, keeping herself around more sober men who can protect her from potential rapists, calling the emergency services or other people when she senses that things might go out of hand, etc. This also means that the rapist slash penetrator is also incapable of doing what they, because unlike what the UK law thinks, men aren't the only rapists, can rationally do to convince themselves that they should value the victim's consent over their insatiable sexual desires and that they should not rape them. They wouldn't be able to consider the consequences, time in jail, being put on the sex offender list, difficulty in finding jobs or other relationships in the future, etc. Why? Because they're drunk, and drunk people don't think. I'm sorry, but how in such a scenario can one expect, not hopeful, but expect, to come out unscathed? You are throwing yourself in the lion's den for a cheap thrill, expecting not to get bitten. In some wise words, would you want to live a life where someone constantly has to jump in and save you? Newsflash. You're not a Disney princess, you're in the real world where people get hurt. Don't believe me still? Well, in 2019, Brooks had 5,649 students in the United Kingdom take part in the questionnaire about sexual harassment, and shockingly, 83% felt that alcohol was a major contributing factor. Why? Beats me. So, why am I talking about this? The sexual assault at the party, I'm lasering in on parties as this is one of the most common crime sites for rape, happened because both parties are at fault. It's not just the rapist's fault that you got raped at a party where both parties, you and them, were drunk and slash incapable of rationality. Don't get me wrong, the rapist definitely deserves time in jail for committing such a heinous crime, but because you also decided against your better judgment to enter a risky scenario, you reap what you sow. Their wrong is not an excuse for yours. Everyone is accountable for their own mistakes because nobody else made them for you. Nobody made you go to the party. Nobody made you get blackout drunk. You decided to do all these things on your own. You decided to make your mistakes, and so now it's also up to you to learn from your mistakes. If justice is served, that rapist will also have their time in jail to learn from their mistakes, so do the same. Why does prudence then matter? What makes things dumber is the feminist response to these cases. They will say dumb stuff like,
"We need to teach men to value consent, not women to be prudent."
why on earth is this dumb? Isn't this common sense? It's not an either-or situation. If you actually want to fix the problem, both things must occur at the same time. If you teach a man to value consent, but the woman isn't prudent, she'll still place herself in environments where rape is more likely, and probably end up getting raped still. Perhaps even by the guy who was taught to value consent, but was just too drunk at the time to care. If the man isn't taught to value consent, but the woman was somehow prudent, the guy may probably overpower the woman and rape her anyways. Obviously, I don't need to go through the scenario where neither the man was taught the value of consent and the woman wasn't prudent, because that's literally the majority of all rape cases. Some of you might still think I'm victim blaming here. Maybe this is you right now.
I was not assaulted because I was drunk. I was assaulted because he chose to assault me. He essentially said, "I want what I want, and I don't care what you want." And what's fascinating to me is that because it happened at a fraternity, people almost treated it like a given. They said, well, of course this happens. And I was the variable who was expected to change. They said, well, this wouldn't have happened, if you had just had less to drink. And I continue to say, it would have happened. It just would have happened to somebody else and not me. And when you continue to go after the victim, then you're not reducing the number of sexual assaults. You're letting them run rampant. And meanwhile, you're hurting and berating her. So then we won't go anywhere.
Perhaps you still agree with this woman and think prudence / preventative protection is the problem. Perhaps you need a couple of other daily scenarios to help you connect the dots. Take your house. You live in the city. There will be criminals in the city. Thieves, gang members, rapists, terrorists, etc. You don't want to be harmed by any of these criminals, and you definitely don't want your stuff stolen. So what do? You lock your house doors and your car so that they can't get in. I mean, what kind of idiot would leave everything unlocked expecting to be safe and not have their possessions stolen? Apparently the same kind who think that women shouldn't be prudent. I mean, the criminals aren't going anywhere. They won't listen to reason, so telling everybody in the city to not do crime won't do anything. These people aren't criminals because they're afraid of the law, but rather the opposite. Telling the big bad robber that robbing is bad won't help you.
Swiper, no swiping!
Oh man!
Why then would you make it easier for them to rob you and potentially harm you? I mean, in leaving your things unlocked, that's basically what you're asking for. Hey, I'm an easy target. Do what you want with my stuff. I don't care. Locking your doors is the most you can do. If they still rob you, at the very least you've made it harder for them to do so. And the extra time and effort they waste to break into your house, your neighbors may witness the commotion and call the police in time to catch the robber and return your possessions. It's in your best interest to lock the doors. In this video, I'm advocating for the same thing. Instead of just locking your doors, perhaps lock that alcohol cabinet also. Or just say no to a couple of drinks. Or just don't go to that party. It may not be a perfect solution to preventing all rape, but if you do so, any idiot still stupid enough to try to rape you will waste just enough efforts trying to violate you that those who are sober around you can step in to help or call the police. So, what's the takeaway? TLDR, we live in a place where people find it too easy to look for somebody else to blame for their own problems rather than take accountability for whatever role they played in that scenario. Why? People are inherently lazy and like to find shortcuts to get what they want with as little work as possible. In some cases that's good, like why walk or ride a horse to work, which you then have to maintain, when you could just drive there. I mean, you'd get there faster with more time and energy to spare. However, in some cases, like porn, inceldom, and crime, this desire to circumvent the main route to pleasure can prove dangerous. Victimization lies more so on the dangerous side because it enables people to remain victims of their circumstances without doing anything to improve themselves or their circumstances. Like if you remained sober and avoided being around drunk people who are known to be irrational and surprising, and then you got raped, then you are the true victim. There's nothing more you could have done. Then and only then would it entirely be the perpetrator's fault because you did the most that you could have. However, if you were drunk, wearing immodest clothes, and the perpetrator was drunk, what could you have done to prevent the rape? I mean, how many rape cases happen in the auditoriums of cinemas, or in bowling alleys, or on the streets in broad daylight, or in friend gatherings, or classrooms? There may be a few, but that few pales in comparison with those which happen in parties or bars or environments where people are known to be at their worst mentally. However, it's not just rape. This stuff also happens on a day-to-day basis. It can happen with our grades. It's not fair! Why does Jessica always do better than me in tests? Why does the teacher praise Jessica so much? The teacher obviously likes her more. Job applications. Why did I get this job? I'm totally qualified. Perhaps it's because I'm black and the establishment's out to get me. Making friends. Nobody likes me. It must be because I'm an oppressed minority here. And many more. Of course, there are a few scenarios in these situations in which you truly are the victim. Perhaps Jessica gets a few more undeserved marks in class than you solely because the teacher prefers certain girls. Maybe you were the most qualified applicant to apply for the job, and you weren't chosen solely because the company was looking for token applicants to fill their diversity quota. Maybe you struggled to make friends, not because you lack any desirable qualities, but because they prefer to hang around with people of their own race, sex, or clique. Maybe your boss actually is racist. However, this isn't the case all of the time. As with the example in sexual assault, there are two ways to look at your current situation. Number one, you must automatically become the victim. This thing happened to you purely because you're a victim and there's nothing you could have done about it. Or two, observe the situation and see if there's anything you can do to improve the situation. If not, then and only then go to option one. I'm a fan of number two personally. So, how do I do number two? Let's break this down with a couple of examples that I gave in the previous section. For grades, you should first attempt to improve your grades by improving your revision methods, whether that may be by spending more time revising using handwritten summarized notes from class instead of just reading the textbook, practicing more exam questions like those you'll sit later on, or other such things. Also try raising your hands more in class and interacting with the teacher inside and or outside of the class. If you've done all of these things, then you've done all that you can. You may find out that the teacher actually wasn't a bigot, but rather was only invested more in children who took their education more seriously. You might end up being on the teacher's side and then get more of the support that you need to do better, even better in class and later on in life. Defaulting to option 1, which is victimization, would have prevented you from developing yourself as such and making things better for yourself. Funnily enough, you may even become the student which others get jealous of, as you used to be of Jessica. However, sometimes you have done all of the above and yet the teacher still clearly likes Jessica more. Well, in that case, you've done all that you can. The teacher's behaviors can't be changed, but you still managed to grow and develop as a student in that class despite the biases against you. It hasn't fixed everything, but unfortunately, life isn't fair. I mean, we live in a fallen world, so why expect perfection? What about job applications? Complete bachelor's or master's degrees related to the job or jobs you want to do if you haven't already done your bachelor's. Pick some advanced courses related to the job if you have to. Get some work experience, be it either in your Unity campus employment and recruitment service if you're, let's say, an older teenager, or just cold turkey emailing other companies around you if you're a bit older. Complete some professional personality quizzes and compare the expectations of the person description to you. Make sure that your behaviors are acceptable for the job. If you've done all of that and you've done all that you could have done to be the most qualified candidate for the job and you're still not hired, perhaps they will just try to fill the diversity quota, maybe not. Doesn't matter to you. Apply for a similar job at another company. At least this time, you won't need to do as much preparation, and now you're already quite qualified, so applications to future jobs will be much easier. What about making friends? Look for people with similar hobbies and interests. Introduce yourself to them. Maybe ask to partake in their favorite hobby. Learn to be more comfortable talking to people and listening to them. Work on your joke telling and storytelling if you have to. If you've done all that you can and they still want to be friends, then they're lost. Look for other people. I mean, there's gonna be millions in your city alone probably. There will be someone who will want to be friends with you, and you can now be that better friend. If they're not in your school, they might be across the street, or at a neighbouring school, or at the park, or the library, or anywhere else. Doesn't mean they're not there, you just need to take the time and effort to look for them. Hopefully you're seeing a pattern. You do yourself dirty by defaulting to self-pity and victimization. You miss golden opportunities to seize the good things in front of you by refusing to uncull yourself from that miserable ball on the couch. You instantaneously look at good situations to grow and develop as bad things because you are unbothered to change. You'd rather everything else around you to change to serve you when things don't work that way. Such a mindset will only limit you. Stop.